Hello and welcome to this Experian Marketing Services webinar. My name is James Murray. I'm the Digital Insight Manager for Experian Marketing Services, and today I'm joined by one of our Senior Data Analysts from Cheetah Mail, Helen Taylor. Today's webinar is all about being able to effectively drive ROI through email, but just to remind you, this is one of 3 webinars which we're running using different parts of Experian data. The first one, which we ran a couple of weeks ago on the 10th of May, was all around search. Today's email webinar is obviously all about how you can leverage email to make the most from your data source and get the best return from that. And then sometime next week on the 23rd of May, we'll be running a similar webinar around social. And if you want to sign up for those, by going to the Hitwise website and clicking on the new webinars button, you can find out all about those webinars and also get the recordings of previous webinars. So Experian, for those of you who don't know, is a big data company, and when we talk about having a lot of data, it's quite interesting. It's usually a good idea to sort of quantify that. So Experian know 500 things about 49 million people across 24 million households in the UK. And when you try and sort of think about perhaps some of your close relationships, you know, your friends and colleagues, and you think about how many things you know about them, you know, where they work or what their sort of personal interests are, you might be able to build up quite a strong picture of those people and some of the characteristics which define them. But in order to get to a list where you know 500 things about people, even perhaps your closest contacts, you might not be able to reach that number. And yet we know 500 things, not just about our close friends and family or work colleagues, but about 49 million people in the UK. And so that gives us an extraordinary amount of data which we can benchmark people against, and that gives us, so as a consequence, a huge amount of insight into the way that the UK is behaving both offline and online. And we want to share some of those insights with you today in this webinar. So I'm going to hand over to Helen now, who's going to talk you through some of the sort of the key sort of stats around email, and then we're going to be going into some of the more detailed examples of how you can use different parts of your email strategy to be able to leverage some of that ROI. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you, James. Okay, so we've broken down the UK's internet usage into just an hour, so you can get a picture of what people are doing on the internet, where they're going, and where their focuses are. And as is expected, social media makes up nearly a quarter of that, so there's a decent chunk of traffic that goes to social media. The important thing from an email point of view is that email is still there, it's still on people's minds, people are still going there, but it's only 2 minutes of that hour chunk. So what that says to people is that people are going to their email, they're quickly looking at it, they're flicking through it rather than spending an awful lot of time like you would on a social media site or an entertainment site. And this emphasises the need for the emails that you send into customers' inboxes to be really at the top of the inbox. So they need to be relevant to what they want to hear about, and the content needs to be good. So that in that 2 minute interval you get of that an hour, your email is the one that's read rather than the one that's put into the junk folder. This looks at where traffic's going. And when you look on the internet, email actually, as a proportion of the overall traffic, doesn't seem very big. And it's had a decrease compared to last year. And the thing that we want to emphasise here is that this decrease is again due to search engines. Social media and search engines. So there's a massive movement towards social. But the key thing to take from this, that although social is a big thing, and obviously it's a driving thing for content, what we've highlighted here is that actually, from a transactional point of view, so linking directly back to your ROI and to the money that you make off email, email sites like Hotmail actually drive more traffic than content than social media like Twitter. So if you look at the blue box on the right-hand side, that gives you the percentage of traffic that's driving transaction, basically, or driving things to transactional sites. And Hotmail gets 20% of all drivers, with Twitter only getting 9% and Facebook 16%. So although email isn't necessarily the biggest thing on people's minds, it's still really important for driving your transactions and making money. So to continue on with the importance of email and to highlight that you really do need to keep using email as part of a cross message, so along with your social, the number of visits to email sites in the last month is the equivalent number of visits that it would take iTunes to get in 16 years. So in 16 years, iTunes would get the same number of visits as email gets in 1 month. And also, there's 95 million hours a month are spent on email, which is the equivalent of a man driving at 50 miles an hour from the sun to Pluto. So this is a massive amount of time that's spent on email. And again, it emphasizes the importance of it. So back to linking your email to your ROI and how you can use it. An email, on average, within Cheat Email is worth 25 pence. So this is a lot of money. If you can make sure that every one of your emails can see this return, you suddenly start making a lot of money. So on about a million send, you could see a 250k return, which is massive. And again, it highlights the importance and why email has to be good. And in order to realise this revenue, you have to keep a focus on the customer. So there's no point sending lots of emails out to people with content that's completely irrelevant to them. If you can send them relevant content at the right time, on the right day, you will see this revenue. And Experian can help you do this. So they can help you by helping you understand and get to know your customers, know what they want, know when they want it, and just have a deeper understanding of them. And once you've got them, it can really, really help you to keep them as well. So there's the ability, once you have them, to give them content again that's relevant to them, so that they actually want to stay with you, they want to keep getting your emails, and they're no longer going to put you in the junk folder. And again, about sending the right email to the right customer, it becomes very easy if you have information about what they want and when they want it. So as an example here, we've got the two emails, and there's just slight differences between them, but that can be implemented very simply using dynamic content. And just by having that little bit of information, you can put at the top of an email the content that people want to see straight away. And immediately this will make your customers more engaged with you and want to learn more about you. The other thing that we want to highlight from a data point of view is that you have to make sure you test what you're doing. It's no good having a nice idea that a certain subject line is going to work or a certain type of content is going to work. Without testing it, you don't know if you're getting it right. And it's amazing how many email marketers I see who actually put in content that they think is going to work, usually because they have an interest in it or it seems that that's the right thing. And when you send it out, they don't get the success rates that they would expect to get. And a lot of this is because you have a slight bias, and because you're in the industry, testing is basically essential and it's got to be done. And here's an example of that testing. So just with a subtle difference on the content of an email, so the top email has slightly different wording to the bottom email and slightly different imagery, but nothing massive. You saw a 22% increase in click-through rates, and this is a really, really big difference for a really subtle change. So again, being able to test your emails effectively just allows you to understand what works and what doesn't, even if you don't necessarily think there'd be a big difference. The other really, really important thing about being able to get really, really good content and having customers opening your emails is that you won't be classed as grey mail. So Hotmail has, as everybody knows, started this big purge on email that people don't want. And a lot of this email is solicited, so it's not spam. It's email that people have signed up for and then decided they don't want, a lot of which comes under like newsletters, deals, social updates, things like that. And Hotmail has now gone into this, and this sort of email now goes to the bottom of people's inboxes. So with the priority inbox, it takes things that clients use and know and puts them at the top of the inbox, and things that they don't regularly open or don't regularly interact with go to the bottom. So by having relevant content and regularly giving your clients what they want, you will see that you aren't classed as grey mail and actually become part of the inbox. So 62% of marketing professionals said their top marketing issue was turning data into action. And this is something that we want to be able to help you with. So instead of just giving you a load of data and saying off you go with it, we want to be able to make this data actionable and give you some ideas around what you can do with it. And when we looked at our data in Cheat Email, we found that newsletters were massively important to an email campaign. It gives you a contact with your customers without having to tell them something. It gives them something something for free basically. So you're giving them some free information that they want to read without being overly salesy. And we've found this is really, really popular with customers. And again, this is why you should be sending newsletters. You can see open rates increase of nearly 40%, click rates increased by nearly 50%, and click-to-open rates have nearly got a 10% increase. So if you think of how big these engagements are compared to normal emails, it just shows that you should have newsletters in your as part of your campaigns. And James is now going to go on and explain how you can enhance these newsletters using a variety of data.
Thanks, Helen. So what we've touched on there is the real importance of being able to send the right emails at the right time. But one of the great things about being part of Experian is that we have a number of different data sets which we can start to bring together, which start to make all of these things a lot more powerful. So as Helen said, one of the key things is to understand what is it that your customers are really interested in. And as we've seen, as newsletters are a really good way to increase the number of click-throughs and the overall open rate, what are you going to send in those newsletters and what's the content going to be like? Using one of the tools that we have at our disposal called Hitwise, we can have a look and we can tell you what people are searching for. So you don't have to guess, you don't have to have that bias. We can tell you what the online population in the UK are actually searching for and what are they interested in. So I've taken this example. Let's say that you're a card retailer. Clearly, if you're doing that, Valentine's Day is going to be a huge day for you. And so you want to understand what are people searching for around Valentine's Day, what are the top things which come through from that. So looking at the search terms and looking at the way that people search around Valentine's Day, one of the interesting trends which comes out is that it's not just people looking for ideas for gifts or what are they going to buy for their loved ones, but there's a lot of search terms around poems. So 3%, in fact, of all Valentine's searches are around poems and poetry. So as part of your newsletter, if you were this card retailer, why not send somebody a newsletter with some ideas around Valentine's poems, which they can then write in the cards which you're going to sell them. Now, this is a much better way to do a sort of a soft sell rather than a hard sell of like, it's Valentine's Day, make sure you buy your cards. By giving people some free content and some free ideas around something which is going to be relevant and something which they know that they're sort of interested in searching for, we can make sure that you're going to be increasing those click-through rates. So newsletters is obviously a really great way to understand what people are, what people are interested in, and making sure that you're adjusting the content for those newsletters is crucial. But one of the other things that we know about email is that the timing and frequency of emails is, if not just as crucial, it can be more crucial in some ways, making sure that you're getting the emails sent at the right time so that people are going to open them up. So we know that there are certain times of day when it's a good time to send emails, depending on what industry you're working in, but also understanding the sort of seasonality is a sort of a really important thing to get nailed within your particular industry. So again, by using some of the sort of the other online data sets, we can show not just when people are sort of opening emails, but also what other things are going on online, which can show you how to make the most of this. So what I've done here is have a look at the online visits and going to card specialists. So continuing on with the card theme, when are people visiting card specialist websites? And there are sort of 4 key spikes around top occasions. So that's Father's Day in June, Christmas, obviously, when people want to send Christmas cards, Valentine's Day in February, and then Mother's Day in March. Now, if you understand when these key spikes are going to be going on, then you can plan your email campaigns around that. And so one of the other sort of cool things that we can do is start to look at the way that the online and offline retail work in harmony, and what are the sort of the key differences between those two channels. What we've done here is have a look at Hitwise data, which is the sort of the online retail traffic in red, versus footfall data, which is people going to sort of shopping centres and sort of shopping on the high street in blue. And what you can see is there's sort of a few key trends which start to emerge. But firstly, a week before Mother's Day is the time when we have the sort of the big spike in online traffic. So this is organised shoppers who are getting ready to buy Mother's Day cards, flowers and gifts but they want to make sure that they buy them a week in advance so that there's plenty of time for the sort of the delivery to come through from the online retailer. But you then see just the day before Mother's Day, so this is the Saturday before Mothering Sunday, a huge spike in footfall traffic. So this is the less organised shoppers like myself who forget that Mother's Day is on that Sunday and then rush out to the shops at the last minute on a Saturday to buy something for their mothers. And there's an interesting sort of correlation. This is pretty much exactly the same sort of trend that we see around Christmas. Generally, the organised shoppers do their online shopping early in December when they want to make sure to give the sort of maximum delivery time to get their gifts ahead of Christmas Eve, and then always sort of the last Saturday before Christmas, there's a massive rush online for the disorganised shoppers who have forgotten to do all their shopping, and they're sort of running around getting all of their shopping at the last moment. The other sort of interesting trend which we took from last year was there was a slump both online and offline on the day of the royal wedding, and this is perhaps a little bit sort of counterintuitive. A lot of people thought that this was going to be a huge sort of boon in terms of online shopping and people buying lots of sort of paraphernalia around the wedding, and so this year with the Jubilee we'd expect something sort of similar. So clearly you can, by understanding those trends, you can then sort of plan how you're going to sort of do your emails and how you're going to send your emails at the right time. This is a sort of another way of doing that, and a sort of a deeper example around Christmas. What we did here was have a look at the sort of the top retailers and when they were getting their most amount of traffic in the run-up to Christmas. And so you can see that there are different days when different retailers peak in traffic. In particular, Mondays seem to be a big day for most of these department stores. So John Lewis had its biggest pre-Christmas shopping day on the 5th of December last year, whereas Debenhams had it on the 12th and Argos and Tesco on the 19th. Next, because they have such an emphasis in the post-Christmas sales, had its biggest spike of traffic on the 23rd of December, so right close up to the sort of the last minute, getting ready to sort of promote the post-Christmas sales. But what we can do is then have a look at observing your sort of competitors' email strategy. You can then plan around that. So there's a number of different ways that you can do that. For example, by looking at this spike here, we can see there's sort of consistently on Fridays, Debenhams is getting the most sort of a higher proportion of its traffic overall from email. So that's a sort of very strong indicator that Debenhams is sending out email shots on Friday. Therefore, as a sort of perhaps as a competitive strategy, you might want to either send your emails out on a Friday as well, so you're going head-to-head, or perhaps you might want to send your emails out on a Thursday, for example, so that your emails are going out on a different day to your competitor. The other thing you can see is this sort of big green spike here for Next. As we said, because there was a lot of the emphasis for Next is to put it in its post-Christmas sales, so they started loading a lot of their email campaigns towards the sort of the end of December, and in particular on the 23rd of December there must have been a sort of a significant email campaign to all of the Next users, because on that day about 12% of all visits coming to the Next website was coming from an email provider. So again, you can either sort of use that as a sort of a way to sort of copy that idea, or as a sort of to avoid that idea, try and sort of pick something different from your strategy. And one of the other sort of cool things that we can see is sort of being able to sort of jump on the right trends at the right time. So by using data to understand what people are doing and also sort of what's happening online, you can react to that quite quickly. This is an example that we saw where British Airways sort of put a lot of effort into a campaign where they created a new sort of video around to fly to serve. And so we saw that when the campaign started for British Airways, they started getting a lot more of their traffic from some of the top video sites, so the likes of YouTube and Vimeo. Very sort of savvily, easyJet managed to jump on the back of this trend and created their own sort of mock campaign, which they called To Fly to Save. And what we saw off the back of that was that easyJet managed to triple the amount of traffic that they got from email off the back of this campaign. So they took the British Airways idea, they hijacked it and sort of changed it subtly but it managed to generate an awful lot of traffic off the back of that. So by understanding what people are doing online, what your competitors are doing online and what sort of campaigns they're running, you can sort of use that to your advantage. So we've talked a little bit about some of the key sort of content ideas, so how you can, we know that content's important for newsletters and how you can sort of understand the trends for that. Then also some of the other things that you can do around timing and frequency and how you can understand your competitors, the way that they're doing their sort of campaigns and sort of react to that. But the sort of the next step to take email to the next step is by doing customer profiling. And Helen is just going to, again, sort of go through some of the sort of key ways that you can do that, and then we'll have a sort of a case study of how that can work in reality.
Okay, so one of the most important things is being able to understand your customers, we've been emphasising. And the only way that you can do this is by being able to profile your customers. So as we said earlier, being able to send the right content to the right person at exactly the right time is about understanding them and knowing what they want. And one of the main things that we need to focus on is knowing which of your customers are active, which of them are engaged with you, want to know more about what you do, what you're talking about, and which ones at the moment have no interest in you, so the people who would class you as grey mail. And also, knowing who your hot prospects are is really, really important to be able to make sure that they become active users straight away, rather than falling into the inactive category. So your active users are the people who probably spent money with you, they're regularly opening your emails, and they basically like what you're doing. These are the people that you want to keep focused on. You want to make sure that they get your offers, and you want to know, they want to know more about you, sorry. So these are really, really important, but you must not treat them the same as your inactive users. There's no point. Your inactive users at the moment aren't interested in you. They're not opening your emails, so something you're doing is wrong. So they need to be treated differently. Knowing who your inactive users is really, really useful because it allows you to understand how to do reactivation campaigns. So you take them separately from your active users and you focus on them. You give them different types of email. You send them different subject lines to try and get them engaged. And this is where having further information outside of just email activity is really, really useful. So if you can append some information to these users, for example, some demographics or some or their age or something like that, you can start targeting them more closely with information that actually might be interesting to them, rather than maybe before they've been getting content that's not very interesting. The other one that's really important is understanding your hot prospects. So as I've said, these are the people who are already engaged with you. They've just signed up and they want more information from you. You need to make sure that straight away you can give them information that they want, so that they will continue to engage with you. And this is where using Experience Mosaic can be really, really useful. So you can append information about your customers to every single one of your customers and find out a little bit more about them. So instead of just knowing their email activity and whether they've purchased from you, you can start to understand their income or their age range, whether they have children, and things like this. And this allows you to segment a lot more closely. And again, as I said, if you can understand the difference between your inactives and your actives, you can start targeting them in the same sort of way. So if you have people in the active group who fall into a certain mosaic type or have certain mosaic demographics, you can target the people in the inactive group in a very similar way, using similar emails, and this would allow you to hopefully increase your engagement rates. And this is where James is going to come in. So he's going to give an actual example of how this can work.
Thanks, Helen. So we've understood that actually that segmentation is really important, and that we have to be able to understand what people look like online in order to be able to start targeting different types of people, different groups. And so one of the examples that I wanted to show was how we could do this with makeup. So one of the things that we do know is that sort of the life cycle of, say, a foundation when you're buying makeup is about 3 months. So it's a very simple way. If you know that one of your customers has bought foundation in about 3 months' time, you can send them an email to say, we know that you're probably about to run out of foundation. Why not buy another one? And perhaps here's a sort of a cross-sell opportunity to also sell them some concealer or blusher. But we want to take that to the next level. We want to say, okay, how can we look at some of the sort of the key things which can help to influence that, and how can we segment the audience to give them different offers which are going to make that much smarter and hopefully give you a much better return overall. So one of the key things to point out is in the way that people search for Clinique. In this example, people are searching for Clinique bonus time. So this is something where they want to understand what are the sort of the special offers that they can get from this company. But then also here are some of the top sort of products which they're actually searching for. So they're searching for the Even Better Foundation, and they're looking for the Moisture Surge, and they're looking for the Dark Spot Corrector. And so this would be a great way in terms of something we talked about earlier, getting your subject lines right. If you want to use this search data, will help you to be able to create the right subject lines for the right people. These are the things which people are actually searching for, so this is what they're interested in. One of the other things that we've done here is have a look at what people search for immediately after a search for Clinique. And so one of the cool things here is that this is the shops that they start searching for, so the likes of Boots, Debenhams, John Lewis and House of Fraser. So this is where people are going after a search for Clinique. They are starting to search for where they can actually buy those products, and that will come quite useful later. Using mosaic demographics, we can tell you sort of where people are coming to the Clinique website, and so we can segment those into different groups. Here is the sort of your middle affluence people, so here's your sort of your core demographics for Clinique. Then you've got your sort of slightly older and more affluent people, so that's a slightly different proportion of your customers. And then finally, here's a group who are definitely able to afford the Clinique product, but for whatever reason are actually not being sort of targeted very well. So here's your sort of your new prospects. So group those together in terms of core audience, affluent older customers, and then new target audience. So your core audience are the people that you want to be able to retain as your customers. So those are the ones that you want to send the information about the bonus time. Your affluent older customers don't necessarily need a discount, but because they are slightly older, they'd be great people to target, particularly for, say, an anti-age wrinkling cream, whereas you wouldn't necessarily want to send that to young mums. And then your new target audience, these are the people who are going to be your sort of your future prospects, your future customers. And so these are the people that you want to make sure that you're really giving sort of care and attention to actually get them on board. And so we can show you what those people look like online and sort of some of the other things that they do to give you an understanding and really fill out that pen portrait of what those people look like. So on the right-hand side here, we've got some of the sort of the key media that they consume and some of the brands which they like. But we can also show you some of the other shops that they like. And so one of the interesting things here is that Debenhams and Boots, although Liberal Opinions, although this group does visit this these websites, they're actually under-indexed, so they're less likely to visit these websites than the online population, whereas they're much more likely to shop in John Lewis. And so, as we saw from this slide again, people are more likely to search after a search for Clinique with Boots and Debenhams, but they're less likely to search for John Lewis. And therefore, as a sort of a targeting strategy, it would be really good for Clinique to boost its reputation and the partnership that it has with John Lewis if it wants to attract more of those Liberal Opinions customers. So some of the key takeaways that we've talked about today: increasing your ROI has to be about being customer focused. So understanding what your customers want and addressing those needs are going to help you sell the products and services that you have better. Email allows you a very intimate relationship with your customers, and much more so than any other sort of marketing channel gives you that opportunity to really boost the ROI. Combining data is what we're all about at Experian, and it helps you to understand your customers better. So using search and using social, combining that with email can get you much stronger returns. And finally, segmentation is the way forward. So we know that by using sort of segmentation processes that can lead to much higher open rates, 50% higher click-to open rates, and ultimately that can start to deliver 10 times higher revenue, which really starts to add up to a significant return when you realize sort of how many people you're actually emailing and the products which they're starting to buy. A final sort of plug from us: if you want to understand more about what we do online and how we can sort of help you with that, you can follow us on Twitter at hitwise_UK, or you can visit the website. And then there's also that's the Hitwise side of things, but there's also the cheat email side of things. They're the sort of specialists in email. And if you want to understand more about this and talk to us, you can email myself, which is james.murray@uk.experian.com, or helen.taylor@uk.experian.com. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you found it useful.